Right. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. So there's quite a few of you in, but the session will be recorded, as it always is, and it will be shared with you in the next couple of days once marketing gets it sorted. So we'll get started. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Today, I was hoping to cover and give you more news on Microsoft 365 CoPilot, which is your AI assistant for Office, and it's based on CoPilot, based on ChatGPT-4. It has been released on November the 1st into enterprise customers who are willing to commit to 300 licenses of CoPilot. So from an education point of view, the news is very short on the ground, unfortunately, yet. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to cover some of the AI assistants from Microsoft that you can get your hands on now. After that, Pam from KnowBe4 is going to cover their solution that enhances security awareness among your users. But to start, I'm actually going to recap on Windows Server 2012 end of life, which I covered last month, but there's a little bit of news on that, some good news to be fair. Okay, moving on. So recapping what we covered last month, Windows Server 2012 and Windows Server 2012 R2 have gone end of support from Microsoft. This means that you're no longer getting security updates as hackers find holes in the software to protect you from any vulnerabilities. Even though Microsoft have stopped sending updates out to everyone, you can still protect these servers with what's called an extended security update, or ESU. So if your workloads are in Azure, so your Windows VMs are in Azure, for example, you will get ESUs automatically applied for the 3-year term of the ESU. After that term, there's no longer any updates at all. Okay, but in Azure, you will get those ESU updates for free. Next, you have ESUs, or Extended Security Updates, managed by Azure Arc. Now, Azure Arc is a tool within Azure that allows you to manage your workloads in Azure, but also multi-cloud environments. So it will allow you to manage your environment, other environments from other cloud providers. But on top of that, it also manages on-premise resources, so your on-premise servers. So you can use the Azure Arc to manage your ESU deployment on-premise. Now that ESU will be charged to your Azure subscription. The benefits of Azure Arc are that you can stop paying as soon as you've managed to upgrade your server. Because it's an Azure subscription, you stop paying as soon as Azure Arc, as your VM workload has been upgraded. Another benefit of it is that you can choose to get ESUs either for the VM or for a physical processor, a physical host within Azure. And so you can choose how much you want to pay based on what's gives you most value. Then the final one is an ESU, or Extended Support Update, for your on-premise servers. You buy them and you add keys onto your servers that will allow you to get these updates. With this, you have to pay for a full year or a full 3 years, depending on how long you want ESUs for. And you only have the option of buying it for the physical host, not for the VMs within there. But the good news that's just come out of Microsoft in the last week is that they now have education pricing for ESUs. So that makes it a lot more feasible for anybody you out there. Obviously, the best solution is to upgrade from Windows Server 2012, but it's not always possible. Okay, moving on then to CoPilot. The first place and where most people will start looking is Bing Enterprise Chat. So it's currently available in your EES tenancies, or your campus tenancies. You just log in using your work or school account by clicking on that blue icon you've got in the top right-hand side of the screen. When you log in, you'll get a sidebar, which is the AI functionality that you can use to do things like summarize a web page, create a report. It'll even draw an elephant eating hamburgers for you. So you can play with this to do whatever you want, but it's a tool that will help you get your work done quicker. Now, as with any new technology, you need to consider its introduction into your schools and colleges and universities. The same as with any other technology. And even though it is enabled by default within your tenancy, you are able to turn it off, and you are also able to control who has licenses for Bing Enterprise. So basically within your admin portal, you can unassign the Bing Chat Enterprise license from users to not give them control of the application. Okay, the other thing to consider is your data is safe. It's based on ChatGPT-4, but unlike some other solutions, it doesn't store your queries, and it doesn't use your data to train the underlying large language model that sits underneath your AI. So very important that your data is safe with the use of this. Another thing here is it works in Microsoft Edge, obviously, but it also works in Chrome. There are more browser support coming, but at the moment, it's only those two platforms. Okay, next, CoPilot for Sales. So this is a tool that allows salespeople to track engagement with a customer in Teams and Outlook. So it will record meetings and give you summaries and allow you to save that into your CRM system. You might think you haven't got salespeople, but a lot of people use Dynamics 365 Sales, for instance, for their enrollment process with students, for instance. So it may be important to education. It's already in the December price list from Microsoft. So from December, you can get it, and it's a payable license. The other thing about it, it'll work with any CRM system, not just the Microsoft 365, the Dynamics 365 license. It will also work with Salesforce, but it will work with other CRM systems as well. It's basically the replacement of Viva Sales that came out last year. Okay. Next, you've got CoPilot for PowerApps. So PowerApps is a solution that allows you to create what Microsoft call low-code applications, where you can develop an app very quickly without having too much developer experience. Obviously, that's a very oversimplified description, because the more complicated your apps, the more work they will be involved. But CoPilot for PowerApps will be available in all maker licenses. So that is anybody who has to develop the apps. It will allow you to do things like point it at a data source, let's say Excel, and it will have data in Excel, and it will give you example apps you can create from that data, and you can choose whichever one you want, and it will go ahead and create that app for you. You can obviously customize it afterwards and do what you want. You will also be able to add a CoPilot chatbot into your apps. Okay, this is generally available, but only in US environments, which means that your data will be stored outside of your geographic location. So to avoid that, you're best to wait until it becomes available in UK environments, and that is due around about mid-November. So anytime now, you might find CoPilot functionality appearing within PowerApps, those of you that are using it. Okay, finally, we're going to look at CoPilot for Windows. Now, CoPilot for Windows is built into the operating system. It will allow you to do things like changing settings on your operating system, playing music. It's integrated with Bing Chat, and it also introduces AI into some of the applications that come with Windows, like your snipping tool and drawing tools will have AI built in to help you with your experience there. It's in the latest update to Windows 11, so you will need to install that. It's currently in preview, so it's not full-featured, but more, like everything with Microsoft, more features will appear as we move along with time. It's built into the operating system, so there will be no extra costs for CoPilot for Windows. It's part of the cost of your Microsoft 365 A3 and A5, which includes Windows. And again, very important in education, you can manage it. So you are able to use things like Intune policies to manage and control it. There's also registry keys you can use to control it and things like that. So it is controllable, which I know is important within education. Okay, that's the very quick tour of what's available in CoPilot at the moment. More is going to come available. And I'm hoping next month to do a full session on what's new from Microsoft, hopefully with more news on CoPilot, based on the Microsoft Ignite conference that's going on tonight. Okay. Before I leave, maybe outside of CoPilot, there's also some important new AI functionality, which I have mentioned before, but it's worth recapping. In A3 and A5, Microsoft have introduced AI assistants to help your students with their learning. So there's a reading assistant that will listen to the student, give feedback to the student, give them progressive learning, and obviously provide feedback to the tutors as well. The same is available for maths. So they're in A3 and A5, so something important for you to consider. Okay, that's it for me for now. Very brief, but Pam is from KnowBe4.
So to those of you that are not familiar with KnowBe4, we focus on human risk, and specifically we focus on integrating the human element into your overall SOC. So really making your employees a part of your overall security stack. We've been doing this for some 13 years now, so we do have a day or two experience in the field. We were pioneers in the space a while ago. Now, we are going to have a quick tour of the console in just a second, but really what I wanted to discuss with you is the people element of your overall security stack. You know, we talk a lot about AI, we talk a lot about things like deepfakes, you know, generative pre-trained transformer chats, but really when all is said and done, your security always stops with your people, so it's always your last line of defense. And cyber criminals know it's way easier to social engineer a user to click on a link or scan a QR code to provide them with data than it would be for them to make their way through anything else that you may have as part of your security stack. And it's really empowering and educating your employees, educating your people that will really reinforce that last line of defense and will really make the human firewall incredibly strong. Now, with regards to what we do and how we do it, I mean, very much an ongoing effort of continuous education and continuous, I guess, exposure to threats, exposure to, you know, what could happen when you consider data breaches, when you consider social engineering. We know that roughly 91% of all data breaches start with some form of spear phishing or social engineering. So it's really crucial that that's at the forefront of your employees, of your users' minds, through continuous use of assessments, phishing, training, reporting. The point is, particularly if you are looking at integrating security awareness training into your employees' portfolio, as it were, it's important that it happens on a regular basis. So rather than just doing it once a year and, you know, hoping for the best, it is something that we would encourage you to do. I'd say at least quarterly is a best practice, but the more often the better. Of course, bite size is something that we would advocate as well. And then there are a number of ways of how you can test and assess your users as well. Now, in terms of the results that you can expect from working with KnowBe4, and this is, I promise, the very last slide before we jump into the console itself and have a little peek behind the scenes. But what you are looking at on the right-hand side here is the over time result of working with KnowBe4 in reducing that human-related risk. So when you consider the starting point here and what we've measured, as you can see, across 12.5 million of our live users, is what we call a fishbone percentage, essentially the number of people within an organization on average that typically are vulnerable to falling victim to some form of social engineering. Typically, we see that start to be around a third of the entire organization at the starting point of your partnership with KnowBe4. But good news is 90 days in, 3 months, so no time at all. It will take us gently into the new year. You have pretty much half that risk. So really quick improvement, a really quick win, very easy to measure, and of course, as you can see, that steadily improves as your partnership with KnowBe4 goes on. Results we're very, very proud of, and results we will certainly work very hard to help you achieve. By the way, as Mark has mentioned at the start, if there are any questions, please do drop them into the chat, and we'll have a Q&A rather, right at the end of our conversation. So the console, as you're looking at it right now, is of course from an admin point of view. I'm logged in as KnowBe4 demo admin, which is why you'll see that this is reflecting our branding quite heavily. The console, of course, will be or can be branded to yourself, so it can any training notifications or anything that goes in and out of the console can be made to look entirely internal, as well as integrated within your single sign-on, so it sits, within your environment, and your employees, your users, are becoming familiar with it as part of something that's happening internally. What you'll see on the dashboard and what you'll see echo throughout the console is that it's heavily results driven. So you'll see a lot of metrics, you see a lot of reporting, you see a lot of results. And the reason that's visible to you is because pretty much any data point you see within the console can then be leveraged with automation to make your training, to make your education more relevant to the individual within the organization, consequently really targeting that human risk and really working to drive it down. So typically you'll see last 6 months worth of your efforts when it comes to security awareness and phishing. If you scroll down, you'll also see some assessment results. You'll see completion of training. Of course, this is customizable, so if any of this is not resonating, you can go ahead and remove, for instance, industry benchmarking if that's not something that you're wishing to review. But the point is, any data points that you see, so for instance, I can say, okay, anybody with a risk score below 20, I'm not too worried about those people. I'm happy for them to receive a micro training module, so bite-sized learning, perhaps 2-3 minutes, let's say once every 6 months or once a quarter. So I'm still educating, particularly when it comes to compliance, particularly when it comes to your audit trail, and you saying, hey, we're doing everything we can in targeting those risks and targeting those vulnerabilities. You are absolutely able to leverage that. Equally, you can say, okay, anybody with a risk score over 60, perhaps they've got a lot of access to data, perhaps they've got a lot of people reporting into them, or perhaps they have had a little mishap when it comes to a phishing security test or indeed a security proficiency assessment. But those people, because they are slightly more risky to me, I'm going to target them a little bit more often. So I'm going to send a little something, perhaps once a month. And then, of course, the console will take care of that for you. The very last thing I'll jump into before we go to Q&A is the mod store. Really, this is where all of our security awareness training content lives. And for those of you who are not familiar with KnowBe4, there will be two things that I'm hoping stand out. Firstly, by partnering with KnowBe4, you'll get access to the largest security awareness training library globally. And the reason I highlight that is because it's important to understand that security awareness training and human risk isn't just ransomware, isn't just phishing. It's also things like, is the free Wi-Fi in my local cafe really secure? Should I be handling sensitive data on there? Or for instance, those social media tests where you get asked the first street you've ever lived on and the name of your first pet. Is it innocent fun, or are those password cues? So all of those things get very neatly covered, as you can see, along with some compliance related subjects, risk management, so on and so forth, in a variety of different ways. There are, as many learning styles as there are people, perhaps. So you may have some who would rather play a game and learn in a fun way, but I have absolutely no doubt that there'll be people who'd rather, complete their training. This is my completion certificate. I've had my quiz. I'm done for the quarter or the year. But you also may have people who'd rather, watch a series, be it a sitcom or be it, a drama where they get exposed to real life scenarios and examples of what would happen if there was a data breach, that originated internally, externally, or whatever that might be.